2 times. Period. All right, you can tell I did summer camp, okay? Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Nakara Campbell, and I serve as the Executive Director of Rolling Sea Action Fund. And on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus PAC and Rolling Sea Action Fund, I want to welcome you to this amazing panel and discussion we're going to have today. I do want to start with our name, what Rolling Sea comes from. And you might have heard it. It comes from a little line in the National Black Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, let our voices resound loud as the rolling sea. So that song was written by a black man in the 1900s in the middle of Jim Crow. Imagine a freedom this country hadn't given him yet. That is the same spirit that is built this holiday's real meaning for us. Not the fireworks, but the fact that our people have always been and always had to organize, resist, and build our own version of independence on our own timeline. So today of all days, it feels right to be standing in New Orleans, a city that knows exactly what it means to rebuild and keep moving forward. This panel, Resist, Build, Unite, carries that same current. It's the blueprint Reverend Jesse Jackson gave us, that power at the local, the federal, and the community level that isn't separate. It rolls all together and really makes us inseparable. So, without further ado, the person of why we are all here, who makes all this go, and I want to give her her flowers. No, cry again, I don't care. Cara is the blueprint that we're talking about, the power in the motion. She is someone who believes in the power of black creators when everyone was using our blood, sweat, and tears and our TikTok sounds to make themselves go viral. And she was like, you know what, we need to pay our black creators. We need to make sure they have the platform because we know that without black people, America would never even envision it for themselves. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring up Cara Johnston.
That was a lovely introduction. Thank you all so much for being here. This is our 5th year in a row activating at Essence Fest. Oh, thanks. We have come from humble beginnings, but we have been in this festival for the last 5 years because one of the things that I love best is black women. And when I know that black women are coming to the American South and they are celebrating one another and they are celebrating life despite everything that could be going on in the world, they are, amplifying that idea of togetherness. And then we bring everybody else along with us because as you can see, this room has men and women. So we've got everybody here. We are celebrating ourselves and blackness. And it is only right to be doing so on, what are we saying, the Juneteenth Part 2? That's what we're doing today. So I appreciate you all for being here and joining us. And I want to thank you. You could be anywhere. There's a lot going on. So I appreciate you being here. Today, this whole activation, Power in Motion, was specifically born while I was watching Jesse Jackson's funeral. That is what happened. I'm watching Jesse Jackson's funeral, and I thought, how powerful is it that we have a historical figure that really reminded us that blackness was beautiful, it was bold, it was, visionary. And I thought, how can we honor his legacy? And this is before all the craziness happened this year. But I still wanted to make sure that we were showing our power and putting it in motion. Obviously, we have had so many things from this administration that have tried to break not only us as a people, but us as a country since Jesse Jackson's funeral, namely the Calais decision, which came down. When I thought about this panel for Power in Motion, Resist, Build, Unite, I thought we had a unique moment to talk to people about what we could do in the micro to make change in our own communities and our neighborhoods, and thus this panel. We have built a panel of phenomenal leaders who are doing just that. They are not trying to boil the ocean. They are not trying to, do this for the fame or the fortune. They are doing this for the love of their craft, the people in their districts. They are doing this for the love of Black people in total. And so I thought, what better time than to amplify these folks that you'll see on stage. But I am not going to introduce them. Our host for the day is going to introduce them, and I am going to introduce you to our hostess. So we have been working with Camille for many years at this point. She also hosted a panel right here on this stage with us last year, and I am so excited to tell you a little bit about her. Camille is, first of all, a phenomenal creator. So I'm gonna read the bio, I'm gonna do the thing that I'm supposed to, but I also wanna talk about how Camille is a person who really makes something out of nothing, and she loves to do it. She likes to say, I have nothing, I'm gonna make a plan and I'm gonna give you something, and gives you more than that. She actually had a program in this building this morning at 8 a.m. So this is the second time she's been here hosting, and I just wanna say that, there's a lot of people who kind of, will make content, but she also does the thing. She helps and activates in the community, which is another reason that I thought that she was perfect to host this panel. Camille Viviana is a viral content creator and entrepreneur, founder of Black Woman on a Mission. And she's also the author of The Power of Infinite Potential. With a combined audience of roughly 275,000 across TikTok and Instagram, she uses her platform to amplify and encourage Black women, building positive spaces around the theme of resilience. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Camille. Thank you so much for hosting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, I like that. Y'all went to church when y'all was little. So I'm going to be introducing our esteemed panelists for today, starting with Miss Ashley Shelton. Woo! Give it up. Ashley is the founder, president, and CEO of the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, a statewide civic engagement table in Louisiana that combines community organizing, issue advocacy, and civic action while building the capacity of community organizations across the state. She previously served as Louisiana's director of One Voice and as vice president of programs at the Louisiana Disaster Recovery Foundation, where she managed integrated recovery programs after Hurricane Katrina and Rita, and earlier as the director of grant making at the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. She's been recognized as an Emerging Leaders Fellow at Duke University and the University of Cape Town. Miss Ashley Shelton. Coming to the stage next is Representative Troy Carter. Give it up, give it up. Mr. Carter has represented Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District, which includes New Orleans, since 2021, and serves as the first vice chair of our favorite caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus. A product of New Orleans Parish Public Schools and a graduate of Xavier University, he made history in 1991 as the first African American elected to Louisiana's 102nd House District, and later served on the New Orleans City Council and as State Senate Minority Leader in Congress. He sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. And last but certainly not least, we have Mayor Brandon Scott. Mayor Scott is the 52nd mayor of Baltimore, and at 36 years old, when he took office in 2020, he was the youngest person ever to hold that office. A Baltimore native and graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland, he was first elected to the city council in 2011 and rose to council president before winning the mayorship on a platform centered on treating gun violence as a public health priority. He won re-election to a 2nd term in 2024. Mayor Brandon Scott. All right, guys, I'm gonna take my seat and get this conversation started.
Give it up for our moderator.
Yes. Thank you. All right, guys, we are here to talk about what resistance looks like right now. So many of us that are here today grew up in the digital age. So when we think about the civil rights movement, the legacy of that, and how information was spread, that's much different than what it looks like today. So can you talk about effective strategies for resistance and how that's changed over time?
Well, I think I have the most recent example, so I'll start. So the Louisiana legislature was in session when Calais came down. And so with that decision coming down and the Supreme Court saying that we no longer needed a racial remedy, right? And then you saw Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, all come down very quickly with a decision to go into a legislative session to be able to redistrict and create maps that basically took away the black representation that we were able to create. And so Louisiana, the state that you're in right now, we were able to create a second majority minority district because we have the second largest black population in the country proportionally, second only to Mississippi. So more than 30% of this state's population is African American. And so with 6 congressional districts, it only makes sense that we should have had 2 seats out of 6. And for me, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that when this decision came down and the Louisiana legislature decided to have a meeting on these maps to reduce our representation, we had more than 500 people show up at the Capitol on that Friday to say they didn't want this. This is not what we voted for. This is not what even the Supreme Court said, to be very clear. They said this map was a racial gerrymander. They didn't say that we didn't have enough black people in this state to actually include a second majority minority district. And one of the things that I appreciate is that through the process of going through these legislative hearings, we were able to, one, have enough people across this state sit in committee on that first Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then they had another hearing the following week. They moved the date, and we still had folks hold them there from 4 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And to be able to prove the point that people in Louisiana really cared about this issue. So more than 1,000 red cards, which are sworn affidavits in the state of Louisiana. So when you actually red card, green card, whatever you do at the legislature, it is a sworn affidavit. And whereas we had folks making claims that these were paid actors and all other sorts of foolishness, the reality was that over almost 1,000 Louisiana citizens actually signed a sworn affidavit saying they didn't want this. And I think that that's what's most important for people to understand. And I think that that's what I'm also most proud of, because also they didn't stay just for the moment. They stayed the entire time, both that Friday and that Wednesday, the following week, to make sure that their voices were heard in this fight. And I'm so grateful, because I think that we've been fighting this fight since 2022. People think that this just happened on April 29th. The Supreme Court decision was on April 29th, but this fight has been happening in the state of Louisiana since the census, redistricting, and so forth and so on. And so we've been fighting since 2021 to make sure that we had fair and equitable representation in the state of Louisiana, which we've had, because we had Representative Cleo Fields sitting in that second seat, standing with his other minority seat holder, Troy Carter. And so we had 2 minority seats. And let me tell you why this matters. In a state like Louisiana, we have the most powerful congressional delegation in the country right now. We have the Speaker, we have the Majority Whip, I think Lettlow's on appropriations, we've got my good friend here on finance and several other committees. And at the end of the day, we still have a delegation other than my good friend here, Troy Carter, and Rep. Cleo Fields, that are actually actively undermining FEMA, Medicaid, SNAP benefits for the very people in this state who need them the most. Speaker Mike Johnson has the largest amount of people on Medicaid benefits in his district in this state, and he still voted to not protect his own constituents. And so I want y'all to understand what we're fighting here in the state of Louisiana and how critical it is to have more than one voice fighting for us as we are standing before Congress saying the really important things. And I also want to say one thing too that's important. Louisiana has won the race to the bottom. We have been fighting for a long time with Mississippi and other southern states about what it means to be headed towards the bottom. And unfortunately, we have beat Mississippi. We have made our way to the bottom. And the only advocates that we've had has been Congressman Troy Carter and, Representative Cleo Fields and, our Black Legislative Caucus. Those are the only folks that have been standing up for what it means to be a poor state in this country and what it means to actually have representation. And so I want y'all to understand that with this Calais decision, what it has meant and what it continues to mean is that you, as an African American or any other minority, you, at every level of government, you do not have the ability to elect a candidate of choice. And I want you to sit with that for just a second. You, as an African American or any other minority, and I always remind folks that includes women of every race and ethnicity, your ability to elect a candidate of choice has been impacted by Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act being neutered by this Supreme Court. And so when we talk about what the work ahead of us, yes, the South is on fire, and we also know that when the South is on fire, it's headed to a state near you within less than a year, and even the states that we think it could never happen, Massachusetts and others, that we have a real fight to fight about what it means for Black and other minorities to have representation in this country. And I also want to say that we can't have a real conversation about citizenship if we don't really talk about what it means to have representation, because key to citizenship is representation. You can't tell me that it means to be a citizen in this country and I don't have anybody that looks like me in Congress bringing the issues that I care about every single day, talking about the things that are really important to me. And that's why representation matters. And even as we have so many folks, young, old, and otherwise, saying we're not political, I want to remind you that if you're Black or another minority, your existence is political.
Boom. What she said. Listen, what does resistance look like? Resistance looks like this. It looks like showing up. It looks like exercising your voice. It's far more than voting, although voting is the epicenter of resistance. It's communicating. It's staying awake when people are telling you somehow that woke is bad. Well, how is woke bad when the opposite of woke is to be asleep? Yep. Don't fall for the okie doke. No one can define what our consciousness looks like. We've got to remain vigilant. We have to be conscious. We have to be present. We have to be willing to fight. And we have to, as a group of people, spend more time talking to each other and less time about each other. We've got a responsibility to work together and not let anybody divide us. So what the resistance looks like, it looks like organizing. My good friend here is everywhere. Power Coalition is everywhere. Doing the job, stepping up, making the voices of the voiceless heard. My friends in the audience and this beautiful moderator who are social media beasts, influencers, are getting the message to people in non-traditional forms where they can get it, feel it, taste it. Unfettered facts. Not whitewashed by media, not tilted by someone's commentary, but live in action. That's what the resistance looks like. It looks like the 1,000 red cards that were put in the Senate and Governmental Affairs Committee. People giving up their time, their talent, their energy, spending money to travel to Baton Rouge, sitting all day when they did head fakes of the committee's going to start here, but then it started there. The committee was in, there are multiple large Senate rooms on the Senate side in committee. But they put this committee in the smallest room. The Hankel room would have accommodated much bigger crowds, but they put them in a little bitty room. Why? Because they wanted to silence the resistance. But our people weren't having it.
They weren't. We filled every
single room, overflow in the hallway, in the parking lot. They took naps and came back.
And they closed the cafeteria.
And they closed it down, and when they tried to turn my nephew's mic off, they said, shut the whole damn thing down. If you're not going to let us be heard, shut it down. Because we're not going to be silenced. And our resistance is going to take I refer to it, the all of the above menu, with the exception of violence. Because some clowns will try and take my word and say that I was trying to do like Trump did. Now, we're not trying to incite violence. We're trying to incite energy, commitment, and votes. Representation. So the bottom line is, it looks like what you're doing. It looks like recognizing that every age, every category, every demographic has a role and a voice. And brothers and sisters, let me take this opportunity. I hope this becomes contagious. And if you agree, I'd ask you all to start saying it. We cannot let folk outside the tent divide us inside the tent. This notion that this Democrat is different from that Democrat, whether it's a Democratic socialist or a moderate Democrat or a progressive, hell, we're all Democrats. And we all have a responsibility to fight for the people. Let us not be divided because some people have different approaches. None of the approaches are all right. None of the approaches are all wrong, but they're all good. Why? Because we're trying to solve hunger, homelessness, lack of education, taking away, making sure that people can have and breathe clean air and drink clean water, making sure that there's equal pay for women, minimum wage for every worker that's not just minimum wage but a living wage, making sure that our environments are safe, making sure that we're not sending billions of dollars to foreign wars while people are dying on the streets of America. Yes. Let's start talking about that. Yeah. Let's start really loving each other like they can never contemplate the love of this community. But let's not do it just when we're mad. Let's do it all the time. Let's use that activation. Let's use that energy. Let's lose that commitment that all of you have that you use every single day when we're telling our story. We can do this. We will do this. And we will do it together. And to me, in conjunction with what she said, that's what activation looks like. That's what our activism looks like.
No, for sure. And before my good friend,
you could go ahead.
Look, before my good friend from the mayor from Baltimore speaks, I want to say something that's really important, because we think policy is just this fight at the congressional level or a fight at the state level. But what's really important is that what he's been able to do as a leader, as an elected leader, right? He has been able to address a violence crisis in a community that couldn't be addressed until they had a leader that was willing to actually listen to the people and actually willing to create real solutions. And I think that we forget in this country that, again, our leadership, these folks that we elect to represent us, that's actually what their job is. And when we actually have someone that's willing to listen and then create solutions based on that we actually can see the outcome. And so when I got called to be on this panel, and I was like, y'all, this is like, I'm so geeked out. I'm so excited. I was like, I'm with my favorite, one of my favorite congressmen, and then I'm with someone that I've admired for so long, because I've seen what you've been able to do. And so even though I didn't want to intercept your conversation,
This is Essence Fest. Whatever black women say goes.
Right. I was like, and Essence, and I'm from Louisiana, so I have a little bit of privilege, just a little bit. But I think that it's important for us to understand that what it means for your vote to have power, and what it means for your vote to be your voice. Because if you've never seen it, his example of leadership absolutely demonstrates it every single day. And so I'm, like I said, just honored to be able to sit here with you two. And in particular, to be able to see it at the congressional level, but then more importantly, to see it at the local level.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Good afternoon. Yeah, let's give them both a big round of applause. I am Mayor Brandon Scott. I bring greetings from the city of Baltimore in the state called Maryland, also known as Wakanda these days. But really, resistance is different for everybody. Resistance in this moment depends on where you sit, where your responsibilities are, and what you are comfortable doing. But everyone has to resist. Obviously, as a mayor in a state that is not like Louisiana, couldn't be as different than Louisiana. Resistance is different for me.
We can take it. Look, we need you. Wait a minute.
No, I'm not moving. No, I'm good. But I think for us, for me, what resistance is in a multitude of ways, right? No, we don't suffer from some of the same ills that you guys suffer here. But let's be clear. we have to resist in a different way. I think all of us in this room are smart enough to know that the loss of federal employment hit my state harder than everyone else, right? And my grandmother would always say, I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Exactly.
Stupid enough to believe that the fact that many of those individuals were black women, many of those individuals were black people, and the black wealth created in the state that I live in was created on the backs of the federal government. Those things are not a coincidence. They're intentional. So what does resistance look like? Obviously, it looks like fighting that by suing and doing all the great things that we had to do legally, but also it means like, okay, let's go hire these people. Let's go bring them into city government. My governor brought them into state government, made them teachers, do everything that we can to say, you might chop our people down, but we're gonna be there to lift them right back up in ways that you could never imagine. That is resistance. Whenever they are dropping whatever latest thing that they're dropping, we always say in the group of mayors, they say, Brandon doesn't even know how many times he sued the federal government. I don't. Because every single time we're going to continue to do it because that's where the fight is. Sometimes the fight for us as leaders of communities is to say, okay, we are going to go the legal route to hold this up as long as possible, to fight as long as possible, the hopes that maybe one time the Supreme Court actually gets it right eventually here, right? But that is resistance in the fight. What you just talked about, the way that we're leading on gun violence reduction is resistance because we're coming up on a year. I was sitting poolside in Mexico when my phone started to go crazy. And the bartender says, that's your phone? I was like, yeah. He was like, somebody's calling you and they really, really want to talk to you. And I look, and the government had called me like 4 times. So I called him back. He's like, have you seen what Trump said? I'm like, I'm in Mexico. And I purposely came to a bar with no TV so I couldn't be bothered. What's going on? He says, he's talking about the city and talking about sending in troops. Now, what we've been able to do without the National Guard, without all of the insanity that we've seen, is have Baltimore, as you and I are talking today, have the fewest amount of homicides that the city has ever seen on record through June, right? But that's on top of a record drop last year and a year before that. We have seen this happen now. We have been doubling the national reduction in our city, and we're doing it in a community-based way, and a public health-based way. That is resistance. But resistance for all of our folks out here could be different. It could be finding out that thing that means the most to you, that they're attacking, and volunteering, and going and testifying, and showing up, and helping organizations organize people. That is resistance. When you think about the movements that have happened in this country, it's not just the people with the microphone in their hand that are the reason why that we were victorious. Every single organizer, every single volunteer, all of those people matter, and we have to show up now because people literally died for us to have these rights. We cannot just allow them to take them away.
Absolutely. We know that this room is filled with a lot of community organizers, amplifiers, influencers. How do those wins that happen on the ground in local organizing translate then to federal and local power?
Well, I guess for us, organizing wins in local government are like cousins, right? So what happens at the local organizing level is definitely going to impact us at the local government level. And a lot of times, and you look in cities, we're doing those fights together, right? Whether it's for us in Maryland and Baltimore, the fight to raise the minimum wage started that way, right? For us, the fight that we're talking about of how we're doing gun violence prevention started that way. So many organizations and movements have been fighting to do that for fair workers' rights, all of those things. And I think we have to now go back because there was a disconnect for some folks for a long time. We're like, oh, well, we can't work with organizers because we're government, or organizers can't work with government because they're government. Well, right now, newsflash, all of us are the same to them.
Exactly.
Right? That's the reality. We have no choice but to unite. We're not, like the congressman said, I'm not telling people to always agree with anybody. I don't like when anybody always agree with me. I need that pressure of being challenged and pushed, but we have to understand the moment that we're in right now. And I always say it this way. My grandfather was born on December 24th, 1920. His great-grandson, Charm, my son, was born 103 years and 2 days later. My grandfather was born with more rights, less rights, died with more rights than my son has today. That's a reality of what's happening in this country. And if we do not come together and fight, build those coalitions that were so important in the civil rights movement and all these other things to the magnitude of the moment that we're living in, all the things that our ancestors died for will be for nothing.
No, and I totally agree with you. And I think that, I mean, it can't be said enough. At the end of the day, you know, I was at a conference and we were talking about like what are all the different strategies we can use to continue the work that we've done to lift the voices of Black and other minorities in this country. And because of the Supreme Court's decision in Calais, you know, we had a lot of folks saying, oh my God, we've got to work around race, we've got to abdicate, we've got to, you know, like we've got to figure out a way. And, you know, and I find myself saying like, hey, excuse me, I'm Black every day. I don't get to abdicate, work around, abandon.
There is no workaround.
I said, what are you
They
talking
know
about?
that you're Black.
That's how I'm Black every day. So I don't know what you want me to do about the fact that I wake up in this country Black every day. And so to abdicate, work around, or abandon race isn't an option. And that what's before us is actually to stand in the space that our ancestors stood in and to say that I won't stand for anything less than what my grandmother had. Even though I currently sit here today with less rights than my grandmother had. And I want to say that again, I stand here today, or will sit here today, with less rights than my grandmother had. My children sit here today with less rights than my grandmother had. And I want y'all to sit with that. And I think that when, you know, I hear people say, especially my cousins, my folks, like not my favorite cousins though, say that like, you know, they were like, oh, you know, I'm not political. No, I can't get involved in that. I want all of us to understand that your existence, your very existence is political. And on whatever day you don't receive that, accept that, believe that, is a day that we further find ourselves in a place where we're losing rights.
Local government, on the ground, there was a famous Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, who said, all politics is local.
Absolutely.
And it all starts on the ground. It starts, listen, I started my career working for a mayor in local government. It is the hardest job you will ever do because I refer to it as pothole politics, Mr. Mayor. You're dealing with overgrown lots, abandoned housing, crime.
My power went out.
Potholes. You're dealing with those issues that don't go away. They just cycle out and they come right back.
There's a cat in the alley.
All that. So the challenges of local government and organizing is paramount because what you do at the local level trickles up to the state and federal government. Don't ever think that those things that you're doing on local government on the ground isn't getting to us in Washington. It is. Don't ever think that those marches, those activations, those discussions aren't getting to Washington. Don't think that that social media Instagram post that you say like Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, isn't getting to Washington. It is, and I encourage you to keep doing it because we're hearing it, but equally as important, they're hearing it. You know what they're hearing? We ain't gonna keep taking this. You know what they're hearing? That we're not gonna sit back. Listen, in the United States Congress, we're outvoted. I don't think there's a secret, but we're not outvoiced. We're not out-challenged. We're not outworked. So we've got to take that same energy at the local level, to the state level, to the federal government, because every level works together when we stay angry enough to have the gall to want equal rights.
Audacity.
Have the audacity, the gall, the cheekiness to want what's ours. We don't want any favors. We don't want any gifts. We want to be recognized as we are. And so today, as I look at my tireless sisters with the CBC PAC, Rolling C, who do an incredible job. Listen, give them a round of applause because they travel all over the country. They travel all over the country doing this, raising money, providing resources, talking about local, state, federal government, talking about how we will continue to build greater voices in Washington, D.C. in state capitals and local governments all over this country.
Absolutely. If you look at some of our Instagram posts that are making it to Washington, thankfully, you will see we all have really different ideas about what resistance looks like, what the next chapter looks like, how to get there. And so as we think about this panel drawing on the legacy of Jesse Jackson, who was an amazing coalition builder, how do we come together across this great span of ideas, egos, personalities, thoughts about what the right way is to go and how to get there, so that we can all move forward together?
The right way is your way. There is no right way. There's no way that's better than anybody else's. It's getting off the sofa. It's getting out of your comfort zone. It's showing up even when it doesn't impact you. You can no longer say, well, that doesn't impact me, so I'm going to just chill. No, it all impacts you. Me today, you tomorrow. Right. We have to really look at this as a collective we. Let me tell you, the one thing those other folk who fight against us, whoever those other folk may be, they don't want us unified. They hate these kind of meetings. They hate us sitting here together. Yes. They hate us arm in arm, saying we're going to work together, that we're going to stand up. They don't want to see this. You know what we got to do? Give them more.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump does not want to see us having meetings like this. If he didn't think your vote was important, they wouldn't be working so hard to take it away.
That's it.
If they didn't think your voice was important, they wouldn't be trying to silence you. And if they didn't think you weren't beautiful, they wouldn't be trying to look like you.
And I can't argue with that. You know, and I think that, you know, one thing that I will also say about this is that, again, I can't say it enough. You know, if you don't understand as a black or other minority that your existence is political, I don't know what else to tell you, because the policy, your lived experience should codify that into law for you. That should codify into reality where we are as a country. And I think the other thing that I think is really important is that, you know, we have to recognize in the state of Louisiana in particular, because of the set of circumstances that we find ourselves in, that we have the opportunity to elect the first U.S. black senator to Congress. Yes. Louisiana.
Jamie Davis.
Right. I said Louisiana has not elected a black person to statewide office since Reconstruction. And what it means is when you have the second largest black population in the country, proportionally, that absolutely is something that we should be able to do, but it requires all of us to show up. It requires all of us to be present and to understand what we are trying to accomplish. And I think that when we look at the ballot in November, look, let's be serious. I mean, you know, look, we've had a Congress that has abdicated its responsibility to the executive branch, with the exception of my good friend here and a few others. But the reality is that we have 3 branches of government, and no matter what the Supreme Court says, Congress has the ability to give us our rights back, our voting rights, and many others. We've seen them move very quickly to destroy, undermine, and take away our rights, including the Department of Education, which who ever thought that was something that we needed to debate about the necessity of or the ability we needed to have. And you know, and I think what I want folks to understand is that November is our opportunity to elect a Congress that's going to do the work of the people, a Congress that's going to discontinue their ability to abdicate their rights to the executive branch and actually restore balance, restore voice and opportunity to those of us in this country that have felt like we've had no voice, that have felt like we have been undermined and put to the background. And so I want us to always remember that there's always power no matter what they say. There's power in play, but you have to stand in that power. And I always tell folks my hardest job as an organizer and as someone that's trying to build power in community is to get people to believe. The hardest, I always tell folks my job is always like getting folks to believe in what can't be done. And I wanted you to believe that for 10 years, every single year, we've been able to do what they said could not be done. We've re-enfranchised formerly incarcerated voters. We have been able to end the practice of non-unanimous juries in the state of Louisiana. We were the second there were only 2 states left in this country convicting people with a non-unanimous jury. We've expanded voting rights in the last 5 years, every single year in the face of voter suppression. You know, we have been able to do things that these folks said couldn't be done in the hardest place for it to be done, which is the Deep South. Because I want to remind folks, as goes the South, goes the rest of this country. And I don't want you think of any terrible policy you can, and they were all seated in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, sometimes Arkansas, sometimes Florida, maybe Texas. And by year, all of those policies were sent wholesale to the rest of this country. The right to work. What did they say? We were in our backyards with alligators and canoes. We didn't care about the people. We were ignorant. We didn't understand. And I said, no, we understand perfectly fine. The bigger issue is that we didn't have the power to do anything about it. And I want y'all to know that as y'all look at the South and say, oh, it's just the South being the South, what's happening in the South has an exponent. We are seeing elections being canceled, elections being nullified, people that have been elected to office by more than 70% of the vote losing their seats based on what these folks want to happen. And so I want y'all to recognize that this stuff is happening, and it's happening very quickly. And so whereas as goes the South, goes the nation has been slower, it's happening very quickly right now. And I want y'all to pay attention to what we're getting ready to see in 2027 and 2028. And you cannot ignore it, you cannot deny it. They're testing all of these things to see what your appetite is for election tampering, your vote and your voice not mattering, and all of these different things. And so as someone that's on the ground every day talking to communities, I just want y'all to remember your voice, your vote is your power, and never let it go. Scream it from the mountaintops, show up to every community meeting, city council meeting, election. Most importantly, show up to every election, because that's where they need to see it and feel it.
I couldn't agree more. I think when we think about coalition building and where we need to go, we all know where we need to go, but how we get there, the word for me that comes to the top of my mind is uncomfortable. Yep. Because if we're going to get there, everybody's going to have to be uncomfortable. We're going to have to be moving in a way where people's egos are pushed to the side, people's soul missions are pushed to the side, people's differences amongst each other, personal differences, all of that, y'all going to have to hold that for a minute. And we're going to have to be uncomfortable in knowing that you're going to have to work together with people that you don't always agree with people who you might have some staunch disagreements on. But what we're talking about here is moving us all forward. Meaning, as you said earlier, Carmen, there is no right way. Folks got to get in a room and say, how can we actually get this done? The for sure way for us not to get it done is by fighting amongst each other and doing nothing and saying it's not going to matter anyway. Because you're right, they are testing. They're testing to see how it is, how we feel about these things. Oh, well, if we just go up and round up all the brown people first, we'll see how they start, how they feel then, right? But we know they always gonna come back home. We always on deck. Like they love baseball. Baseball is a national pastime. We on deck. We have to know that. But in order for us to truly come out of this victorious, people have to take themselves out of it. Take their ego out of it, take their organization out, take their mission, take their elected office out of it, right? And say, how can we come together to make what we need to happen, happen? And that means we're gonna have to challenge each other. That means that we're gonna have to push each other in ways that it's gonna make people uncomfortable. But we don't think those folks in the civil rights movement were uncomfortable. We don't think those folks working on the Underground Railroad were uncomfortable. They absolutely weren't uncomfortable. But it also means another part of being uncomfortable. We're going to have to leave some people behind. Harriet didn't bring everybody. Some people had to get left.
Some got shot.
Some people
Some had to
are
be
gone.
knocked out.
Some people are with the other side.
Because they wouldn't follow.
Right.
And they weren't ready to
and
be
once
free.
they are gone, we have to let them be gone. You can't save everybody. The moment is too large for us to be worried about people who we thought loved us and loved our people, who we thought were with us and with our causes, who we thought would be there to fight with us in the foxhole. Once They are gone, and with them people, let them stay there.
I want to give, if I can indulge for half a second, Madam Moderator. 150 years ago, there was a man elected, the very first African American to be elected to Congress anywhere in these United States. His name was John Willard Menard. He was elected 150 years ago to the seat that I now sit in. The difference is, he was elected overwhelmingly. He made his way to Washington for his swearing in. Listen to me now. And there was another Southern white gentleman. Of course, they all were a white gentleman in Congress at that time. He went to the well of the house where I argue today. And he said, America is not ready for a Negro to serve in Congress. And summarily, John Willard Menard was not seated. Just like Calvin Duncan.
Oh, yes.
See the similarity? 150 years ago, we are now looking at what happened with John Willard Menard, an African American who was elected to Congress. We have had 5 African Americans in the history of our country since Louisiana joined the Union. 5 African Americans. Only 4 have served. The first was denied. So when we talk about what happened since Reconstruction, I want you to know that last week, Louisiana made history. We advanced a Democratic candidate to be our Democratic nominee for the United States Senate. The first time since Reconstruction, we will have an African American on the ballot for United States Senate, and he's here today with us, Jamie Davis. If that doesn't energize you to write a check, if that doesn't energize you to go out and vote, if that doesn't energize you to tell somebody you got to go vote, if that doesn't energize you to feel good about yourself, if that doesn't energize you to tell you we have a long way to go, but don't let anybody tell you that we haven't gone somewhere. Listen, stop, feel the pain of oppression, but let that uncomfortable feeling catapult you to a better place. Vote, organize, educate, stay engaged. It's dark now, but I promise you, the sun will rise again.
That really speaks to my last question for all of you before we get into audience questions, which is, what is all of your message to people who may feel overwhelmed with this process or unsure of where to get involved or where to start?
Well, I have an answer for you. You know, one of the things that I always tell folks, I think that folks feel like they need to love their representative, their senator, their city council person, or whatever. And what I remind folks is to think about the alternative. So the person that is maybe imperfect, right? Or the person that literally does not wake up any day and consider you. And I want folks to think about that. You can elect a person that is imperfect and considers you, but may not get it right all the time. Or you can elect someone by voting or not voting that literally doesn't wake up at any moment and ever just consider your existence and the reality that you live in this country every day. And I think that one of the things that progressives have to remember and learn is that, you know, we want to be in love with our candidates for some reason. We want to be in love with the people we vote with or vote for. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, can you hold the line? Will you hold the line for the things that are important to me? Will you protect my children? I mean, that's the real question for me. And I don't have to love you for that. I need you to do your job, which is to protect my children, right? And I think that that's what us, that's what, Black and other minorities forget as voters, is that you got to be thinking about who's not only going to do the work today, but who's going to protect my children today and tomorrow. And I think that sometimes we get caught up, and we need to stop getting caught up, because again, my existence as a Black woman in the Deep South is political. I've never woken up one day and not realized that. And no one in this country that's African American should ever wake up any day and not realize that your existence is political. And I think the Calais decision, unfortunately, codified that into law, that your existence is political. And so, I think for me, what I want voters to walk away with is that your vote is your voice, is your power. Always has been, always will be. And it's the only way that we get leaders like Troy and Brandon into office to be able to hold at every level of government the things that are important to us and the things that matter to us. Because again, I'll say it again, Louisiana has one of the most powerful delegations in the country right now, congressional. I mean, we've got the Speaker of the House, the Majority Whip, and those are the two people that are actively undermining FEMA. Louisiana has Arthur, which was a tropical storm, just destroyed multiple parishes in our state. But then our Majority Whip, whose district has received the most congressional money of any congressional district in this country, is actively working with and supporting them to destroy and undermine FEMA. And then you think about also the reality that, we've also got a Speaker of the House whose district has the most people on Medicaid in his district in the state of Louisiana, who agreed with, didn't fight for, didn't try to negotiate anything, and people in his district are gonna die. They're gonna die. And I was arguing with somebody in the airport, and they were like, "Oh, you're so dramatic." I said, what a privilege to be dramatic. What a privilege. I said, I don't get to be dramatic. I said, see, your privilege allows you to be dramatic because you think you can say that to me when I understand what it means to live in a state where more than 56% of the budget comes from the federal government, and that's about to shift dramatically. And so the Southern strategy only works if the federal government backfills the budget. And so if the federal government is no longer doing that, which, let's be clear, the big ugly bill absolutely says the federal government is not coming to save us, then it means we have to move differently as a Southern state. And it means that we have to show up, vote for the kind of elected officials that are going to do the work of the people. And so I just want to say that there's a place for you to show your voice and your activation, like whether you're coming to Power Coalition and volunteering or doing whatever, working with one of the parties, working with community groups, neighborhood groups. At the end of the day, there's a place for you to show your leadership, to show your voice, and to stop saying that we're going to sit by and let folks just completely undermine our voices and act like we don't matter. And I always say too that the only answer to the Supreme Court decision in Calais is for black folks to show up like we did for Obama the first time. We didn't do too great the second time, but the first time, that's how y'all have to show up in November and elect a new Congress that's going to do the work of the people, and that's going to restore our voting rights, end the filibuster. I mean, the list is endless, because what I also want us to do too is challenge these candidates to understand that the other side, we didn't destroy the Department of Education. There's so much stuff that's happened in the last year that I can't even keep up with all the things that they've destroyed. But what I do know is that if they can destroy it, then we can rebuild it and build it better in the same amount of time. And we can't be afraid to do that work. And that's why I'm really privileged to sit here with these leaders that are willing to do that work.
Amen. I'm going to pick up where she stopped. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Said differently, don't be scared to get your hands dirty. Don't be scared to step up and say what needs to be said. Don't stay in your comfortable place, because we're never going to advance in a comfortable place. Calm seas never made a master sailor. Let me say that again. Calm seas never made a master sailor. You got to go through something. And God knows we're going through something right now. Absolutely. But guess what? In the 60s, freedom fighters went through something. I listened to Andy Young, and you may have seen this. Andy Young, a native of New Orleanian, former mayor of the great city of Atlanta, former ambassador to the UN, someone who marched, fought, and was by the side of Dr. Martin Luther King when he died. He was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge with dogs barking and biting. He said, and I quote, "This time right now is the worst I have ever seen." He's 95 years old. He has seen the worst. So yes, be angry, be anxious, but don't be scared. Don't be lazy. Don't run, don't hide, because this is our civil rights moment. This is our time to do what we said we would have done. Well, you got it now. And not one of you will get a pass when the day comes when you're asked, what did you do when they came for our democracy? May I suggest that you say, I was in the battle, and our survival and our democracy stands today because I didn't quit, because I didn't give in, because you are the best and the brightest that we have. And I know that we're preaching to the choir because all of you are ready to convert it. But like every good choir, the choir needs rehearsal. And like every good choir, we have a responsibility to get new members to join the choir. Sing, brothers, sing, sisters, fight, brothers, fight, sisters, vote, brothers, and let's win. Because when we vote,
We win.
when we vote,
We win.
God bless you.
For anyone that's feeling down and feeling like they don't know where to go, I always just start by saying, our skin may be dark, but we are the light.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They cannot erase us because you cannot erase that from which you came. And as I always like to remind everyone comes from a black woman because everyone comes from Africa. They thought that slavery would erase us. We still here. They thought the civil rights movement, Jim Crow, would erase us. We're still here. They thought that the war on drugs would erase us, and we're still here. We're still here. But we're still here because we fought. But we're still here because we recognize from which we come from, and we don't allow ourselves to be pigeonholed into that short vision that they have of who we are. When we know who we are, when we show up as our true selves, which is the descendants of the creators of civilization, we know that power that is in us, that is in our lungs, that is in our feet, that is in our brains, and in each of our hands. That's what this moment calls for us to do. Walk in that power, walk in that truth, follow the footstep of all of those that came before us and died. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, some of us are probably going to have to die. But if you are not willing to die for your people and the future of your people, then what purpose is it for you to live? That's all I got.
Thank you so much, panelists. I believe now we have some time for audience questions.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated the conversation. And I wanted to open with a little bit of a provocative question. The panel is about strategies to resist. Resistance is fundamentally reactive. It can galvanize people, but that can fizzle out over time, right? That resistance as an idea is something that's against something else. And so I want to ask if you have a sense of a positive vision. So something that people are not only fighting against, but fighting for, and that can serve as perhaps a longer term inspiration.
Yeah, I would just start by saying, I think that for us, we led this off by talking about things that we were already doing before the Orange Man came as resistance. Resistance in many cases is continuing the great work, continuing to fight for causes, continuing to push for things that are now under attack, right? If you were already doing community violence intervention work, you continuing to do that even though the highest power in the world is threatening to cut your funding and take all these things away from you for doing it. If, for example, in the city of Baltimore, we have not stopped doing DEI, we have not stopped doing minority business requirement and women business requirements because It's the right thing to do, right? And it is something that makes all of us stronger, because when women-owned businesses benefit from government contracts, black-owned businesses benefit from government contracts, it makes those communities stronger and healthier for everyone. That is resistance at the highest level. When you continue to push things, like myself being one of the co-chairs for Mayors for Guaranteed Income, something that is very unpopular with those folks. Continue to push those things that people can believe in, pushing for better health care, pushing for better education. All of those things are also resistance in this moment. You have to do those things, right? It's like you have to be an octopus these days to fight these crazy people. You have to do the things that matter, the daily things, right? For me, I have to make sure the trash get picked up, water comes on, all of those things. I have to do all the things that we just talked about, and every other day we have to fight for something. Well, we're going to cut your housing funding. Well, we're going to cut your education funding. Well, we're going to do this. Well, we're going to send this, and you don't want it, but we're sending it anyway. That's what this moment requires. It requires for us to have that vision, but also be punching on the side and doing the things that you already were doing and lifting those things up so that people know in the moment that you don't have to be so down. Even though we have these crazy people, there are great things happening in states and cities across the country. We have to uplift them as the example of what the whole country should be, despite the insanity that we see out of Washington, D.C. Sorry, sir.
I understand, brother. I live it. Listen, when we play football, we play offense
And defense.
or defense one at a time. In life, in this struggle, we play offense and defense simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive. They're not separated. We got to do both. We got to defend and advance. And everything we've talked about today has been to do just that. I appreciate your question. Very thoughtful question. And the answer is very simple. We have to do both. We have to chew gum and walk at the same time. We're talented people. We're smart, we're gifted, we're strong. We've overcome some of the worst atrocities, and yet we still stand. Man, my people are strong. And we will overcome this ugliness too, because why? Because hate cannot fly sustained this long. It will eventually come tumbling down, and we're seeing it now. But the arc of the moral universe bends, but not by itself. It bends when good people put their hands on it.
Absolutely.
We block, we tackle, and we run, all at the same time.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think too, one of the things that we always talk about in this work is that we do offense and defense, right? Like both are required. I think it's actually the new strategy to have us caught up in defense so much that we never even get an opportunity to do offense. And what we've said as both the people, organizers, folks on the ground, community, is like, hell no, I got time every day. For whatever you putting down, I'm picking up. And so we're gonna both be offensive. We just saw the city of New Orleans convict our attorney general, who has been vindictive to the city of New Orleans, with 16 count indictment, right? And even though they're fighting and saying all the things, it's a kangaroo court, it's this and that, this is the same court that you tried to minimize and subvert the voice of. And so at the end of the day, there are multiple ways that we can fight, and offense is as important as defense, and we're doing both. We're trying to close the registration gap. We're trying to actually move as many Black and other minority voters to participate in this election in the fall than it has ever before, because what we understand is that maybe it hasn't been your experience to see a Congress that's actually done the work of the people, but it is possible, okay? And we have members on this Congress willing to do this work, but it takes all of us to elect them to believe in what's possible, to believe in offense, to believe in what we can actually accomplish together. And I think that that's where we've got to get people to. And it's like, and maybe we're not gonna get to know each other personally, we're not gonna be best friends, we ain't gonna be able to break bread together every 5 minutes, but the reality is that what I can do is say that if these 5 people trust you and break bread with you, then I'm gonna go with you, okay? If these 10 people break bread with you and are gonna go with you, and the message are the things that are important to me, because let me be clear to y'all, I'm no longer thinking of my future and the things that are important to me, and I'm not even that old, so let's be clear. But it's true. These young people, you're trying to make me feel old. But what I want y'all to know is that what matters to me are my children. And I want my children to be okay. And I've got a 25, a 23, and a 19-year-old. And what you're not going to do is make my children have to leave this state in order to be happy. Because everything I love is right here, right now, and in a few parts in Texas. But everything I love is here, okay? And so what you're not going to do is force my children to leave me to be okay, to be happy, to be able to have a job, to be able to have opportunity, to be able to have access. And so when we think about our role as voters, that's the kind of stuff we have to be thinking about. Is that you're not going to take my children from me. You're not going to make me get on an airplane for Thanksgiving and Christmas because, these people are so racist or they don't care and they're crazy. What I do know is that when we fight, we win. What did you say? When we fight, when we vote, we win. We win. When we fight, we win. And I think that that's the energy that we have to keep bringing to this, because what I want to remind y'all is that for the years that I've been doing this work, is they said it could not be done. They said, stop, you look silly. Oh my God, I can't believe you're standing behind this. And steadily but surely, we have done all the things they said couldn't be done. We've expanded voting rights. We've re-enfranchised formerly incarcerated people, which, by the way, let me remind y'all, that's over 50,000 voters in the state of Louisiana. Because why? We're the most incarcerated place in the world. Not even just this country, but in the world. And then, and then we've also been able to have such significant wins that we keep seeing ourselves in the national news and local news, as evidenced by this Calais case, Dobbs, and other decisions that we've seen come from the Supreme Court. But again, it is a reminder that as goes the South, goes the country. And we need you. We need you to believe in the leadership of these leaders that get up every day and do what folks tell them they can't do. What folks are, the news says that they aren't the truth. And what I have seen, though, is that they absolutely are the truth. That, when we have questioned the data and the stats support the fact that they stood up every single day and led for black people, did what was hard for black people, and said black people will not be forgotten, ignored, or not a part of this conversation. And that's what you got to focus on. You ain't got to like them. They ain't got to be your best friend. What you have to understand is, who is fighting for black people and who cares about us, and who's going to keep your children in this state when they try to get your children to move out of here because there's no opportunity. That's what y'all got to think about. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Texas. That's what we're talking about. That's what's real about what's happening in this country, is that they don't want us here. They want only industry, oil and gas, and energy to be here, when at the reality of all of this is that I want my kids to be here for Thanksgiving. I'm going to be honest, and it's real simple for me. Real simple. I don't think I'm selfish, but simple. And I think that they're trying to create a space where no one else gets to live here and enjoy what we've enjoyed for generations.
Good.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. You did a fantastic job.
Yes. Thank you all. Please give it up for our panel.